Alright, let's do number 7. In the short run, which of the following costs must continuously decrease as output produced increases? So to understand this problem, we need to understand the terms that they're using. So let's just go over them. The first one is fixed costs. Fixed cost is a cost that is usually a one-time or an upfront cost that doesn't change to the business. So if you're a shoe manufacturer and you have to buy a factory and then machinery to make the shoes, those costs would be fixed. What makes them fixed is that the cost doesn't change depending upon how many shoes you make. It doesn't matter if you make 0 or 1,000. The cost of the machine to make them doesn't change, and the cost of the factory doesn't change, and that's a fixed cost. On the other hand, a variable cost are the things that do change with making additional units. So if you're making shoes, the leather that you'd use to make the shoe or the labor that goes into making each shoe, those do change with every piece. So every time you make an extra one, it's extra leather and it's extra labor, and those are called the variable costs. So when you add up all your fixed costs, you come up with the term that they call total fixed cost. And likewise, if you add up all your variable costs, you get your total variable costs. Now if you divide the total fixed cost by the total quantity produced, you get your average fixed cost. And likewise, dividing the total variable cost by the quantity gives you the average variable cost. Now if we add up the total fixed costs and the total variable costs, we just get the total costs. And similarly, if we add up the average fixed cost and the average variable costs, we just get the average total costs. Now it's not in this problem, but we really should need to go over the term called marginal cost. Marginal cost is the cost of making one additional unit. So marginal costs could change as you start to make more and more due to efficiencies or inefficiencies as you grow. I put some examples here. So for unit number 1, we could say the first shoe cost us $9, the second pair of shoes cost us $8, and then we get into our minimum. The third shoe is 7, the fourth shoe is 7, but by the fifth shoe we start to become a little bit inefficient, and it actually costs us $8. So when we talk about marginal cost, it's the marginal cost at the time of where you are in production, okay? So if I had already made one shoe and they asked me what's my marginal cost, well, the second shoe cost me $8. So at that point my marginal cost is $8. But if I was making 4 shoes and I was about to make my 5th shoe, well, there too the marginal cost is 5. Let's do a different example. So if the marginal cost was, well, if I was making my 3rd shoe and now they asked me what was my marginal cost of making the 4th shoe, in that case it would be $7. There's a similar term called marginal revenue, and that's the cost, not the cost, but the revenue you get from selling one additional shoe. Now remember, the demand curve is downward sloping. So you can see that as you make more and more, you're going to get less and less for each additional shoe that you manufacture. Alright, so now let's go back over to the question and see if we can find the right answer. So they want the cost that will continuously decrease, a cost that's decreasing when the output produced increases. Alright, so the first one is the total variable cost. Now, do we expect variable cost to decrease as the quantity we make increases? That's not true. We know that variable costs keep going up and up with every additional unit that we make. Alright, how about B, total fixed costs? Well, here too, well, actually not, total fixed cost is a pretty good choice, right? Because, well, I take it back. Total fixed choice is not a good choice, right? So total fixed costs, they don't change, right? It doesn't matter how many I make or how many I don't make. The total fixed costs stay the same. So we're not expecting total fixed costs to continuously decrease. Okay, how about average variable costs? So what is average variable cost? If we look over here, it's the total variable cost divided by the quantity. So here, this is good. If quantity keeps going up, right, that means the denominator of average variable cost is going up, but total variable cost is going up too. So that you can't say for certain that average variable cost is going to go one way or the other because you have two things that are changing, the numerator and the denominator. So we have to rule that one out. Okay, now let's take a D. Now D is the average fixed cost. So if we look at average fixed cost, we see that's the total fixed cost, and we know total fixed cost, we just said, does not change, but the quantity on the denominator does change. In fact, it keeps going up and up. So the average fixed cost, as you keep making more and more, will indeed continue